On the chair. Lie down. Thank you. Children's bodies. Introduction. The very essence of being a child centers around the body. Recognized as smaller, often regarded as unfinished and in the process of developing. Bodies mark the transition from being a child to becoming an adult. Bodies are important in distinct ways and shape how children look. From the colour of their eyes, skin, and hair to their gait, sex, and mobility. How children develop and interact in their world is facilitated to some extent by the body. Children use their bodies to move, eat, communicate, learn, and connect to people, places, and things. Bodies are also monitored primarily by adults to gain greater understanding into how children mature. This is often set against notions about what is considered a normal way for a child's body to develop. Ideas about what is normal, however, can be contested as introduced in Chapter 2. And this is illustrated in the ways in which different societies impose their own views on what children's bodies should look like and how they should behave. By exploring how children experience their bodies, it is possible to gain a greater appreciation of how bodies, although primarily regarded as biological, are also social. They are perceived, evaluated, and often judged by the individual child and also by other people. And these judgments can impact children's lived experiences. Bodies are perceived according to deeply ingrained social and cultural values, which may, for example, deem some bodies too fat or too thin, and some as too big or too small. Exploring bodies thus provides insight into how children understand and value their own bodies and those of others. It also reveals some of the power relation evident in how children's bodies are defined, categorized, and sometimes controlled according to their age, size, color, and gender. This chapter is structured to look firstly at how children's bodies are examined, considering in what way bodies are both biological and social. We then look at how bodies are used to categorize other and potentially marginalized children. Finally, we consider how bodies are disciplined, using a case study example, which illustrates how children's bodies are schooled to conform to institutionalized, dominant, adult-imposed boundaries and rules. Oh, we're not very clear today, are we? Let's see if we get the zooms change. No. Wonder why you're not zooming today. Examine bodies. Children's bodies are a long-standing topic of academic and professional interest. They are weighed, measured, and examined by professionals and practitioners to monitor a child's development, checked by parents who may question if their child is developing in what might be considered the right way, and according to their age, stage of life, and studied by academics in an attempt to understand how bodies impact children and young people's experiences. Children and young people's experiences of the world can be substantially affected by their bodies. A child who is born with muscular dystrophy, for instance, who finds moving around their environment challenging by virtue of their disability, may experience their body in different ways to a child who can move with relative ease. Muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition that causes muscle weakness and decreases mobility, making everyday tasks difficult. There are other conditions which can affect children's bodies. A child born with a genetic condition, cystic fibrosis, for example, produces thick and sticky mucus in the lungs, which inhibits their respiratory, digestive, and reproductive systems and can cause poor growth, frequent lung infections, and shortness of breath, and which can impact how a child's play and interacts with their environment. These examples illustrate how children's experiences of their bodies can be shaped to some extent by their biology, including hormonal and genetic influences. As a psychologist suggests, the kind of body we have is a necessary precondition for having the kind of behaviors, experiences, and meaning that we have. Genes are the units by which traits are inherited within families and determine characteristics, such as eye, hair, and skin color, gait, height, sex, and certain abilities. Genes are also responsible for a number of health conditions, as the examples previously illustrate. There can be no denying that a child's biology, their genetic makeup, shapes some aspects of how they look, how they move, and may also impact their health. But it is important to also consider how the environment influences a child's development. Take, for example, a child born with cerebral palsy, who will experience challenges to their mobility and coordination. Cerebral palsy is a neurological condition caused before, during, or shortly after birth as a result of an injury to the brain. It can occur for various reasons, such as genetic changes, which affect the development of the baby's brain, but also including limited or interrupted oxygen supply to the baby's brain, a bleed with the baby's brain, a premature or difficult birth, or the mother catching an infection whilst pregnant. Cerebral palsy will unfold in the child's life, and their experience will depend on social and cultural attributes to disability. Access to therapeutic resources and support, and different kinds of therapeutic approaches. These examples illustrate how biology can also be influenced by the environment. Bodies are not solely biological. The sociologist argues that although humans are immersed in the world that has a bodily dimension, the body and the bodily processes are not solely biological, with a focus on menstruation, and specifically adolescent girls and boys ages 13 to 19 experience connected to this. Fingerson suggests that even though menstruation is a natural biological process, it is intimately tied to social life. For some adolescent girls, menstruation can be the source of pain and discomfort, and many describe how it can also impact their mood, behavior, and energy levels. Yet, for many adolescent girls, menstruation can provide entry into a community where girls can share their experiences and where it marks their status as woman, rather than feeling discouraged by the lack of control over their bodies during menstruation. Fingerson's research reveals how adolescent girls respond by using their bodies as a source of power and agency in their interactions with other girls and with boys. Whilst boys might have the power in interactions when they teased or embarrassed girls about menstruation, girls also have significant sources of power as they use boys and men embrace embarrassment about menstruation to achieve desired ends, such as getting out of gym class or urging boys to leave the conversation. Largely taken as a female issue, often considered taboo and not a focus of everyday conversation, Fingerson's research indicates that how exploring experiences and attitudes to menstruation can provide some important insights into the social aspects of bodies and bodily processes. For many years, researchers spanning different disciplines have examined how childhood experiences are determined by biology, often referred to as biological determinism. This theory overlaps in many respects which debates about the origins of childhood development. Psychological research, for instance, has examined the impact of genes on a child's personality, IQ, or so-called intelligence quotient, and behavioral traits. Indeed, the extent of which a child's development is determined by biology, often described as nature, in contrast to being shaped by the environment termed nurture, has been a long-standing focus for debate. The nature-nurture debate reflects the desire to better understand how and why some children appear more intelligent, anxious, or happy than others. Is this because they are born this way, or does it reflect how children are raised? Overton stressed the significance of biology in influenced children's experiences, but also goes on to question how far these experiences and meanings are shaped by society's views about how their bodies should look, move, and behave. At its most extreme, biological determinism assumes that how children's bodies develop, albeit a changing process for the individual, is fairly predictable and is not influenced by society in which children are raised. In some respects, this assumption is reflected in some of the language and expectations surrounding children's developing bodies for many years. In the UK, infant is a term used to refer to children during the earliest stages of life, who, as anthropologist describes, are helpless and speechless, and are perhaps most marked by the dependence on caregivers for survival. Other terms, such as toddler, describes the period through which many young children begin to explore their environment and develop a number of gross motor skills, including crawling and walking. The middle years of childhood are most notably aligned with increasing independence as children mature and are often further associated, although not exclusively, with children's time spent at school or in education. Classified by physical growth, adolescence is defined by pubertal changes in the body, including menstruation and the growth of facial and pubic hair. And you will read more about adolescence in chapter 13. Often connected with the teenage years, although frequently beginning before them, adolescence is considered a transitional stage of development, both physically and emotionally, as children develop into adults. This section demonstrates how researchers often place different emphasis on the relative importance of nature and nurture in understanding children's bodies and the impact that it can have upon their everyday lives. In more recent years, and understanding of the debate has become more nuanced, illustrating and interconnecting of bodies as biological and social. As Overton argues, the development of the person cannot be understood purely in biological or social cultural terms. A person is just not a set of genes that causes behavior, nor is it isolated culture that shapes who the person is. The development of behavior emerges from the fully embodied person, actively engaged in social, cultural, and physical world. Key points. A child's genetic makeup determines their sex, hair, and eye colour, as well as the certain abilities and disabilities. While children's bodies are shaped by biology, their development is also social reflection, the expectations placed on children by society in which they are raised. The nature and nurture debate, when applied to childhood, examines the extent to which children's development is shaped by the interrelationships between biology and the environment and the society in which they are raised. Other bodies. As a primary site of identity, physical changes in the body across childhood and adolescence have a significant impact on how children and young people view themselves and their emerging identity, and also influences how they are seen by others and their expectations of them. Bodies can be sites for concern for parents and carers, professionals, and also children. It is not only a concern for when they go wrong, but also when they appear not to be developing or behaving in ways considered normal, or when they look and act in ways which are regarded as different or other. Through comparing their bodies to others, children develop a sense of self as well as growing appreciation of their identity of others, often guided by markers of age, ethnicity, and gender. In chapter 4, you will learn about self and identities. Bodies are also a means through which children and adults make judgments, and in which the bodies become labelled as different, less than, or broken. This can be used as a way of othering children, who may then become ostracized, bullied, and marginalized as a consequence. Embodied experiences are a site of learning for children about what matters about the body in social world. Through part of the socialization process, children learn the importance of engaging in all kinds of body work, which describes the different ways in which they manage and perhaps also change their body is seen. This is amplified in children's contemporary lives and in social media, evidenced in a number of ways, such as sport that train up the body to become a particular physique and conform to ideals of health, different approaches to eating, and try and contain the body, and how the bodies are adorned and clothed to appear in a particular way, often aligned to cultural differences, different definitions of beauty. For early pioneering sociologists such as Charles Horton Cooley, Understanding the social world highlights how children's bodies are not entirely physical, insofar as they are seen, evaluated, and gauged according to deep seated social and cultural ideas and expectations. I'm off my break.